Hello everybody and welcome back to my book reading of Stephen King's Later. Hope you're all doing fine, hope you're all having a good weekend, and yeah, let's continue, shall we? Here we go. When Mom realized how bad things were, I heard her talking to Aunt Staley, her editor friend, about Uncle Harry on the phone. Mom said he was soft even before he went soft. I realize that now. At 6 I wouldn't have had a clue, but by then I was 8 going on 9 and I understood, at least partially. She was talking about the mess her brother had gotten himself and her into, even before the early onset Alzheimer carried over his brain like a thief in the night. I agree with her. Of course, she was my mother, and it was us against the world, a team of two. I hated Uncle Harry for the jam we were in. It wasn't until later, when I was 12 or maybe even 14, that I realized my mother was also partially to blame. She might have been able to get out while there was still time. Probably could have, but she didn't. Like Uncle Harry, who founded the Conklin literary agency. She knew a lot about books, but not enough about money. She even got 2 warnings. One was from her friend Liz Dutton. Liz was a New York PD detective and a great fan of Regis Thomas's Roanoke series. Mom met her at a lunch party for one of those books, and they clicked, which turned out to be not so good. I'll get to it, but for now I'll just say that Liz told my mother that the Mackenzie fund was too good to be true. This might have been around the time Mrs. Burkett died. I'm not sure about that, but I know it was before the fall of 2008 when the economy went belly up, including our part of it. Uncle Harry used to play racquetball at some fancy club near Pier 90 with a big boat dock. One of the friends he played with was a Broadway producer who told him about the Mackenzie Fund. The friend called it a license to coin money, and Uncle Harry took him seriously about that. Why wouldn't he? The friend had produced like a bazillion musicals that ran on Broadway for a bazillion years, plus also all over the country, and the royalties just poured in. I knew exactly what royalties were. It was literally agent's kid. I was literally an agent's kid. Uncle Harry checked it out, talked to some big bug who worked for the fund, although not to James Mackenzie himself, because Uncle Harry was just a small bug in the great scheme of things, and put in a bunch of money. The returns were so good that he put in more and more. When he got the Alzheimer, he went downhill really fast. My mother took over all the accounts, and she was not only stuck with the Mackenzie Fund, she put even more money into it. Monty Grisham, the lawyer who helped with contracts back then, not only told her not to put in more, he told her to get out while the getting was good. That was the other warning she got, and not long after she took over the Conklin agency. He also said that if a thing looked too good to be true, it probably was. I'm telling you everything I found out in little driblets and drablets, like that overheard conversation between Mom and her editor pal. I'm sure you get that, and I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that the Mackenzie Fund was actually a big fat Ponzi scheme. The way it worked was, Mackenzie and his merry band of thieves took in mega millions and paid back big percentages returned while skimming off most of the investment dough. They kept it going for roping in new investors, telling each one how special he or she was, because only a select few were allowed into the fund. The select few turned out were thousands, everyone from Broadway producers to wealthy widows who stopped being wealthy almost overnight. A scheme like that depends on investors being happy with their returns and not only leave their initial investments in the fund, but putting in more. It worked okay for a while, but when the economy crashed in 2008, almost everybody in the fund asked for their money back, and the money wasn't there. Mackenzie was a piker compared to Madoff, the king of Ponzi schemes, and he gave Old Byrne a run for his money. After taking in over $20 billion, all he had in the Mackenzie account was measly $50 million. He went to jail, which was satisfying, but his mom sometimes said, "Grits ain't groceries and revenge don't pay the bills. We're okay," she told me when Mackenzie started showing up on all the news channels and Times. "Don't worry, Jamie," but the circles under her eyes said that she was plenty worried, and she had plenty of reason to be. Here's more of what I found out later. Mom only had about 200 grand in assets she could put her hands on, and that includes the insurance policies on her and me. What she had on the liability side of the ledger, you don't want to know. Just remember our apartment was on Park Avenue, the agency office was on Madison Avenue, and the extended care home where Uncle Harry was living, if you can call that living, I can hear my mother adding, was in Pound Ridge, which is about as expensive as it sounds. Closing the office on Madison was Mom's first move. After that, she worked out of the palace on Park, at least for a while. She paid some rent in advance by cashing in those insurance policies I mentioned, including her brother's, but that would only last 8 to 10 months. She rented Uncle Harry's place in Spionk. She sold a Range Rover. "We don't really need a car in the city anyway, Jamie," she said, and a bunch of first edition books, including a signed Thomas Wolfe of Look Homeward, Angel. She cried over that one and said she didn't get half of what it's worth, because the rare book market was also in the toilet, thanks to a bunch of sellers of desperate for cash as she was. Our Andrew Wyant painting went too, and every day she cursed James Mackenzie for the thieving, money-grubbing, bleeding hemorrhoid on legs that he was. Wow. I will cut that thing out. Sometimes she also cursed Uncle Harry, saying he'd be living behind a garbage dumpster by the end of the year and it would serve him right. And to be fair, later on she cursed herself for not listening to Liz and Monty. "You feel like a grasshopper who played all summer instead of working," she said to me one night, January or February of 2009. I think. But then Liz was staying over sometimes, but not that night. That night had been the first time I noticed there were threads of grey in my mother's pretty red hair. Or maybe I remember because she started to cry and it was my turn to comfort her, even though I was just a little kid and didn't really know how to do it. That summer we moved out of the palace on Park and into a much smaller space on 10th Avenue. "Not a dump," Mom said. "And the price is right, also. I'll be damned if I move out of the city. That would be waving the white flag. I start losing clients." The agency moved with us, of course. The office was in what I suppose would have been my bedroom if things hadn't been so fucking dire. My room was an alcove adjacent to the kitchen. I don't really know what that word means. It was hot in summer and cold in the winter, but at least it smelled good. I think it used to be a pantry. She moved Uncle Harry to a facility in the Bayonne. The less said about that place, the better. The only good thing about it, I suppose, was that poor Uncle Harry didn't know where he was anyway. He would have pissed his pants just as much as it'd been in the Beverly Hilton. Other things I remember about 2009 and 2010 was my mother stopped getting her hair done. She stopped lunching with friends and only lunched with clients of the agency if she really had to, because she was the one who always got stuck with the check. She didn't buy many new clothes, and the ones she did buy were from discount stores. And she started drinking more wine, a lot more. There were nights when she and her friend Liz, the Regis Thomas fan and detective I told you about, would get pretty soused together. The next day, Mom would be red-eyed and snappy, puttering around her office in her pajamas. Sometimes she'd sing Crappy Days Here Are Here Again. The skies are drear again. On those days, it was a relief to go to school. A public school, of course. My private school days were over, thanks to James Mackenzie. There were a few rays of light in all that gloom. The rare book market might have been in the shithouse, but people were reading regular books again. Novels to escape and self-help books because, let's face it, in 2009 and 10, a lot of people needed to help themselves. Mom was always a big mystery reader, and she had been building up that part of the Conklin stable ever since taking over for Uncle Harry. She had 10 or maybe even a dozen mystery authors. They weren't big ticket guys and gals, but their 15% brought in enough to pay the rent and kept the lights on in our new place. Plus, there was Jane Reynolds, a librarian from North Carolina. Her novel, a mystery titled Dead Red, came in over the transom, and Mom just raved about it. There was an auction for who would get to publish it. All the big companies took part, and the rights ended up selling for $2 million. 300,000 of those scoots were ours, and my mother began to smile again. It will be a long time before we get back to Park Avenue, she said. And we got a lot of climbing to do before we get out of the hole Uncle Harry dug for us. But we just might make it. I don't want to go back to Park Avenue anyway, I said. I like it here. She smiled and hugged me. You're my little love. She held me at her arm's length and studied me. Not so little anymore either. Do you know what I'm hoping, kiddo? I shook my head. That Jane Reynolds turns out to be a book-a-year babe. And that the movie of Dead Red gets made. Even if neither of those things happen, this good old Regis Thomas and his Roanoke saga. He's a jewel in our crown. Only Dead Red turned out to be like a final flash of sunlight before a big storm moved in. The movie never got made, and the publishers who bid on the book got it wrong, as they sometimes do. The book flopped, which didn't hurt us financially. The money was paid, but other stuff happened, and that 300 grand vanished like dust in the wind. First, Mom's wisdom teeth went to hell and got infected. She had to have them all pulled. That was bad. Then Uncle Harry, troublesome Uncle Harry, still not 50 years old, tripped in the Bion care facility and fractured his skull. That was a lot worse. Mom talked to the lawyer who helped her with book contracts and took a healthy bite of our agency fee for his trouble. He's recommended another lawyer who specialized in liability and I know the word but I can't pronounce it. the negligence, yeah, that is suits. That lawyer said we had a good case, and maybe we did, but before the case got anywhere near a courtroom, the Bayonne facility declared bankruptcy. The only one who made money out of that was the fancy flip and fall lawyer, who banked just shy over $40,000. Those billable hours are bitch, Mom said one night when she and Liz Dutton were well into their second bottle of wine. Liz laughed because it wasn't her 40,000. Mom laughed because she was squiffed. I don't know what that word means, squiffed, or something like that. It was the only one who didn't see the humor in it. I was the only one who didn't see the humor in it because it wasn't just the lawyer's bills. We were on the hook for Uncle Harry's medical bills as well. Worst of all, the IRS came after Mom for back taxes Uncle Harry owed. He had been putting off that other uncle, Sam, so he could dump more money into the Mackenzie fund, which left Regis Thomas, the jewel in our crown. Now, check this out. It's the fall of 2009, Obama is president, and the economy is slowly getting better. For us, not so much. I'm in the 3rd grade, and Mrs. Pierce had me doing a fraction problem on the board because I am good at shit like that. I mean, I was doing percentages when I was 7. Literally, agent's kid. Remember? The kids behind me are restless because it's that funny little stretch of school between Thanksgiving and Christmas. The problem is as easy as soft butter on toast. I'm just finishing with Mr. Hernandez, the assistant principal, sticks his head in. He and Mrs. Pierce have a brief murmured conversation, and then Miss Pierce asks me to step out into the hall. My mother is reading out there, and she's as pale as a glass of milk, skim milk. My first thought it was that Uncle Harry, who now has a steel plate in his skull to protect his useless brain, has died. Which in a gruesome way would actually be good because it would cut down an expense. But when I asked, she said Uncle Harry, by then living in the 3rd grade care home in Piscataway, he kept moving further west like some effed up brain dead pioneer. It's fine. Mom hustled me down to the hall and out the door before I can ask any more questions. Parked at the yellow curb where parents drop off their kids, I picked them up in the afternoon. It's a Ford sedan with a bubble light on the dash. Standing beside it is a blue parka with New York PD. On the breast is Liz Dutton. Mom is rushing me towards the car, but I dig in my heels and make her stop. What is it? I ask. Tell me. I'm not crying, but the tears are close. There's been a lot of bad news since we found out about the Mackenzie fund, and I don't think I can stand any more. But I get some. Regis Thomas is dead. The jewel just fell out of our crown. And I'm gonna stop it here for this book reading. Thank you very much for listening. This was a very interesting part that they showed us. A little bit more backstory of between me and my mom. So yeah, it's very basic. They keep it straightforward. So yeah, I'm really digging this story till now. Also, this part I really liked it. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much for listening. Hope you also enjoyed. Let me know. Give it a like if you liked it. Give it a dislike if you didn't like it. Leave some comments behind, all that jazz, you know. And I'll catch you in the next one, in this one, or in my continuation of Cell. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.